I spend a lot of time talking to others on this show to build my own thesis and understanding. And then obviously I do an enormous amount of work at Global Macro Investor and also in Real Vision Pro to bring that to you and also to develop my line of thinking on all of this. Now, periodically I bring old shows back that I think many of you haven't seen because obviously the viewership of this channel is growing rapidly and I want to make sure you see the foundational things. One of the most foundational things possible is this idea around the economic singularity and the fact that you basically have 5 years to unfuck your future. You see, the world is going to change so dramatically by 2030 that we don't have much time to generate as much wealth as possible before we don't know what jobs are, how economies work, and all of this stuff. So this next piece is that piece about the economic singularity and how to unfuck your future. I cannot stress how important it is. It really is the kind of apex of everything I'm doing to help you all in your journey.
Yeah, that line hits. 6 years to set up your life before the rules of money flip? Let's unpack exactly what Raoul Pal is arguing and what's signal versus hype, using hard data, real-world trends, and a blueprint you can actually act on. Okay, the core idea. It's getting harder to stand still. Raoul frames an 11% hurdle rate. His math, 8% debasement, plus 3% inflation, and says most broad indices don't reliably beat that every year. Historically, the S&P 500's long-run nominal average is about 10%. Good, but not guaranteed in any given 5-year window. Receipts, Morningstar Ibbotson data show 10% nominal averages over long horizons, with plenty of multi-year underperformance sequences.
You see, my journey, as you know, had been from democratizing financial intelligence and helping people in their financial journey once trust broke down with the institutions and the system itself after 2008 and 2012 in Europe. That was the birth of Real Vision. The idea was to educate people in that. As I moved forwards, I started realizing the profound effects of the retirement crisis, this baby boom generation, the fact that assets had driven further and further out of most people's reach, and that there was a young cohort and an old cohort that was really going to face a lot of problems. I talked for the young cohort about how cryptocurrency, this was back in 2016, was going to be one of the answers to get them out of this trap. And the baby boomers had more complexities around how they were going to evolve and survive around this situation. I've talked a lot about the rise of digital assets. And then I brought in, obviously, the everything code thesis of how debasement is driving a lot of this. And this is our enemy, an 8% debasement a year, plus let's say a 3% inflation rate. We've got an 11% hurdle rate on our investments, which the S&P 500 doesn't even do. So we have to be very careful in how we protect our wealth or create wealth. This is part of this how to unfuck your future idea. That's based on all of these premises. Beyond about 2030, when things are going to become not understandable by using the existing frameworks of economics, financial analysis, markets, and that kind of stuff. So what the fuck am I talking about here? I'm talking about the magic formula. The magic formula for GDP growth is driven... So sorry, I'm just going to go back, is most people look at AI, the rise of AI, and think of it, again, in societal terms. What does it mean for humans, for jobs, and all of that? But I think there are more profound implications that come faster that we need to be aware of, and that's the economic singularity. So GDP growth in the magic formula is driven by population growth, productivity growth, and debt growth. So population growth in all of the developed world, including China, we've got falling, aging demographics. Many populations are now shrinking. The US, due to immigration, is just holding its head above water, but the rate of change of population is collapsing everywhere. So that means that the economic driver of population growth has disappeared. Now, we've seen that in GDP because GDP, trend rate of GDP has been falling and falling and falling, and it's gone from, in the US, from like 4% to 1.75%. And across the rest of the developed world, it's fallen even further, in most cases below 1%, matching population growth collapsing in those regions. The other side of the equation is productivity growth. Productivity growth is basically units of output per kilojoule of energy. or in other words, what you get out of your cost of electricity. So if electricity is the kind of the energy that makes the world go round, the economic energy, then we need to see what we get out of that energy. So technology has been the big driver of productivity, but the problem is as populations get older, they become less productive. So it's really been a battle, and technology has not won that battle for quite some time. Then we've had debt growth, and I've talked extensively about debt growth. Debt growth basically stops in 2008, and all debt growth is now is servicing of old debts. So that economic engine's disappeared. If you think about the Chinese economic miracle, that was a massive population of, at the time, I think it was 1.1 billion people back in the mid-90s. And what they did was come into the global labor force. The economy of China opened up. That's a massive GDP push. Productivity, well, they built the roads, the railways, the power plants, and all of the stuff that makes China what it is today. That was a productivity boost. And then they increased debt as well. So we had a huge economic boom in China, which we're now paying back with aging population because of the one-child policy. And we've also got a huge problem on the debt side. So how the hell do we solve this? You see, the everything code will just keep repeating ad infinitum, where we just have to keep debasing currency to try and offset the debt payments because GDP growth is not fast enough. So GDP is kind of the economic cash flow that pays for the debts. If GDP growth is low, interest rates need to be low, which is why the Fed are going to cut and all of those kind of things. But also, as GDP growth goes lower, debt growth keeps ballooning, and you have to keep refinancing all of this debt because there's not enough growth to grow your way out of the debt-based economy.
First lever, population growth. Many developed economies are aging and slowing. UN data show working age shares falling across advanced economies, with outright population decline in several countries. That drags trend GDP growth. Second lever, productivity. The US has had fits and starts. Recently, productivity perked up, but over the last 2 decades, it's been meh by historical standards. The BLS shows 2024 TFP up 1.3%, with recent quarters oscillating. Translation: helpful, but not a silver bullet yet. Third lever, debt. Public debt globally is back on a rising path and projected near approximately 100% of world GDP by decade end if trends continue, per IMF. More debt plus slower growth equals policy boxed in.
The big lever here is AI. AI is basically infinite human knowledge. Now, why the magic formula works is because we've charged for and created an economic system around scarcity of labor and scarcity of knowledge. So as the labor scarcity got solved by the machine age and even the Industrial Revolution, we've seen a transition to service-based economies for humans. So that's where we have adapted and moved into places that don't require our manual labor as much. Sure, there's plenty of manual labor, but it's been moving over time. Now, the issue is knowledge, whether it's simply a person working in a retail store or whether it's a lawyer, surgeon, doctor, accountant, creative designer, brand marketing, anything will soon get replaced by AI. And mainly the models are good enough now to do a lot of that, but over the next 5 or 6 years, these models are going to accelerate. Now, what's interesting is right now, we kind of assume that these models have an IQ of around 100. So they're sort of average human intelligence. But I think that's a bad way of looking at it because it has an IQ of 100 in every topic known to humanity. So it's a polymath with an IQ of 100 in everything. Now, as these models scale and the breakthroughs come through, and they will come through in the next 12 months, 24 months, we will see the average IQ of AI go from 100 to 400 and then onto 1,000, and then some people can say onto 1,000,000 as this can compute. So 1,000,000 times the intelligence of a human is a system that we don't understand.
Raoul's big swing. AI collapses the scarcity of knowledge. Today's frontier models already perform across a wild breadth of tasks. The point isn't the precise IQ, it's scale plus speed plus breadth. As models improve and become agentic, they'll build products, run workflows, and, yes, trade markets faster than humans can coordinate.
Firstly, Amazon, I think, now employs more robots than it does humans. And this is a trend I've been pointing out for some time. Humans are cheaper replaced by robots that are more productive. They don't complain, they don't have unions, and over time, they're much, much cheaper. So the rise of the robots is just starting. We're seeing Tesla with its Optimus robot. We're seeing Figure. We're seeing Boston Dynamics. We're seeing a whole bunch of robotics companies. So humanoid robots really start to replace humans because they have dexterity. So they don't have to be for single tasks, much like machine learning was for single tasks and AI is much broader. We're going to see multitasking robots. So that starts helping bolster the lack of humans in the population. But the robots will take longer to scale. Physical hardware, you have to manufacture it, you have to design it. We're still at early stage of this. So yes, we will see Tesla robots and others coming into, let's say, factories, but in our houses, it's probably 10, 15 years away, but it's coming.
Then there's the robotics piece. Reality check. Amazon now reports over 1 million robots in operations, still fewer than its approximately 1.5 million human employees globally, but rapidly growing. This is the pace shift Raoul's pointing to. Physical automation at scale.
Using renewable energy creates two outcomes. Firstly, it massively lowers the cost of electricity. So renewable energy shows an exponentiality in the cost. So cost keeps collapsing each year. So it's down sort of 99% over the last 20 years, and it'll keep driving lower and lower and lower as we get more effective in harnessing the sun's energy. The sun's energy, this is a massive nuclear reactor in the sky that's basically free to use, and it'll get cheaper and cheaper to capture for all of us. Now, right now, people say, well, yeah, but it doesn't scale. Right now being the words. Scaling means battery technology. Scaling means decentralized grids, not centralized grids. You don't need centralized grids to run cities. You can use decentralized grids, in which case solar, geothermal, and others scale massively because you just need smaller amounts in more places than a big amount in one place, which is where most people get this wrong. And the reason why we're doing that is because it's much more efficient to try and eventually get it from this massive nuclear reactor in the sky than it is from burning old trees and fossils from the past. It's actually a less efficient way of doing it, even though it's very energy dense. Energy density is less important if you've got abundant energy in terms of renewables. Obviously, nuclear is the other massive play here. Nuclear, once it ramps up, basically brings the cost of electricity to zero. So I think the marginal cost of electricity goes to zero, and I think Europeans and Chinese are driving it there, and they're driving it on purpose because there's no way out of this economic trap until we drive down the cost of electricity to negligible costs, and therefore it becomes a multiplier as the technology scales on the other side, i.e. we become more efficient at using that electricity cost. That's a huge multiplier. So we've got two massive multipliers coming. One is infinite humans. Two is the productivity miracle of cheap energy. Those two things completely change what economies look like.
Meanwhile, energy, the denominator of productivity, keeps getting cheaper at the margin. IEA and Lazard show utility-scale solar and onshore wind remain among the lowest-cost new generation globally. PV module prices fell again in 2024, and capacity additions are still ramping. Cheaper, cleaner power amplifies digital productivity. Put it together and you get Raoul's two multipliers. Infinite humans, AI plus robots, times near zero marginal cost energy. Economic behavior that doesn't fit old models.
And when you drive down the cost of electricity and productivity rises, suddenly you start to get bizarre outcomes. bizarre outcomes because it doesn't necessarily accrue to the individual either. It accrues in this kind of AI world and robotics world, whether it's to superpowers, super powerful companies, whether it's to governments, whether it's to autonomous agents, which I'll come to in a sec, or a whole bunch of other ways. It doesn't necessarily accrue to us. And that's my fear here, is the accrual of the massive gains of a complete quantum change in the study of economics and how economies work doesn't necessarily accrue to us humans. So I'm thinking about, once you get free electricity from nuclear at scale and all these other things, and infinite intelligence, right? You've created basically a new species.
Here's where it gets spicy. If product cycles compress from months to minutes, if agentic AIs can spin up copycats instantly, and if distribution, attention, is the real moat, then traditional durable moats shrink. Venture cycles look more like 2017 ICO attention games than 1999 dot-com build-outs. That doesn't mean everything goes to zero, just that the half-life of an edge shortens.
When you start thinking on a more profound level, right now, if you see an amazing product, let's say you're in the crypto world, and you see this amazing decentralized exchange, and you think, oh, that's super cool, they're doing things really interestingly, I want to build on this idea. And it'll take you have to spin up a team, raise some capital, and let's say it takes you 9 months because you're moving really fast, then you launch your product, then you need to market it, etc. Well, in the world of almost where we are today, and certainly where we'll be within a year or two, where you just go to the AI and say, hey, listen, look at this amazing new decentralized exchange. I want to copy it and improve it, and I want to do it in Hindi as well because I want to find different markets and I want to integrate it with XYZ system, and it will just design the whole thing from a prompt. Okay, so that makes the speed of business innovation go faster and faster and faster. Over time, you will start to see people using AI to build products. And I think that's what OpenAI is doing already. And I think others will be doing it as well. So then your product iteration cycle becomes stupid fast, and you actually don't need much humans in the loop. So people are already talking about the first billion-dollar company with one employee plus the AI. And I think we're going to see a lot of that. But it becomes incredibly disruptive. What does a business mean? How do you build your business? How do you even know? Even if you're opening retail outlets, you don't need the people, the systems that you run, how you manage your inventory, how you order your stuff, everything changes with this. Agentic AI is opening Twitter accounts and building. One of them has just built 20,000 followers in a week because it's so good at capturing attention. And it's not from being political or anything like that. It just knows how to engage people, capture the right people's attention that grows more attention. So we're going to see a lot of that. But again, AI can capture the attention. So it becomes really complicated. So the economic machine changes massively. Huge wealth opportunities. We don't know who it accrues to. Businesses are going to die at a rapid rate unless you're adapting to this technology now. You have to be leaning into the AI or robotics, or you will simply not survive. And again, it'll be a process like the steel mills in Sheffield or the steel in Pittsburgh. It's an overtime process, but this is a very fast timeline. This is not 20, 30, 40 years of a decline of an industry. These are going to be industries completely disappearing overnight. And so that's very difficult for us, whether we're employees or entrepreneurs. You can't plan a business past 2030. It's hard enough to plan past 3 years these days because AI changes so fast that you can't even plant a flag in what the future looks like.
Adapt or die. It's blunt but directionally right. If your org doesn't integrate AI automation in core workflows, your cost structure will be uncompetitive against those who do.
We know that tomorrow will be more digital than today. The exponential age told us that, and is provably so. Therefore, invest in the only two secular bull markets that exist right now, which is technology itself and blockchain technology. Blockchain has been the fastest adoption of any asset class in history. It was the fastest growth of any technology in all human history, but AI is now outpacing it. So we have to invest in these things. I kind of think of it as investing in our demise as we transition to a new economic system. There's almost nothing that can get in the way of this transition because AI is moving so fast that regulators have zero chance of catching up with it. And because it's globalized, it can just shift and morph. And so therefore you need the supranationals to do something about it. And that's going to take time. So there's almost nothing to do to slow it down. It's going to change the system. It's going to change how it works. And we can invest in it. So I think we've got 6 years to invest as much as we can, whether it's your brain power or your capital, and both if you can, to make as much difference to unfuck your future as possible now.
Raoul's portfolio takeaway: own tech plus own blockchain, the only secular bulls he sees. Whether you agree or not, the macro tailwinds for compute, models, data infra, and digital asset rails are real. Tokenization, settlement, programmable money. Just remember, higher upside also means higher drawdowns. Risk manage.
One of the other ways that this affects the economy is this is essentially a nuclear bomb of deflation because everything goes to zero in value. You can't see it now. The world's fighting over inflation. Our wages might go up and all of this stuff. You have no comprehension of the scale of deflationary shock that this is going to create. Because things that create inflation, humans, their purchases, human labor, scarcity, well, they go to abundance. It inverts the system. So it's a very complicated world, and the deflationary shock is gigantic. It's one of the reasons I do not believe in secular inflation. I think people have the wrong marker stones. People seem to think this is somewhat akin to the internet. It's not. It's fucking profound how big this is. This infinite intelligence. The internet was just the rails. This is the applications layer of which all of humanity will be based. And it is extraordinarily deflationary because the AI will solve its own problems.
Deflationary nuke. If AI solves its own logistics, energy, and security problems, many digital goods trend toward marginal cost approximately zero. You will still see inflation in physical choke points, but the directional pressure on many knowledge-based services is down. We've already watched digital El Koi drop. Now apply that logic to knowledge work.
The only ones that really are protected to me are the human-to-human industries. Stuff like travel, nature, or human connection. Human connection should be at a premium to AI connection. We're already seeing a massive rise in stuff like character AI, which most people aren't aware of, but there's hundreds of millions of downloads of anime AI characters that become people's best friends, their romantic partners, and this is for kids, and it's scaling massively fast. Most of us aren't even seeing it because it's like TikTok was. We kind of just thought it was noise. But look, these AI models are going to be good, and they're going to scale very fast. And as I said, you'll be talking to me in an AI model very soon, where you can just have me on your desktop and you can chat to me. And that's going to happen for everything, from doctors, any expert in any field, anybody who can be trained on a vast amount of data. I've probably got more long-form financial content than maybe anybody else in the world. So it makes it very useful to train models on. And other people will have the same in different spheres. And so you'll find a lot of experts that you'll be able to have at your fingertips to talk to personally and create a relationship with.
So what endures? Human-to-human experiences, travel, nature, community, live events, and trusted guides. Even Amazon, automation giant, still boasts a massive human workforce. Automation scales the pie. It doesn't erase human value. This is the plan for the near future. 1. Skill stack for the agentic era. Learn to direct models, prompting to prototyping to shipping, and build a personal ops stack, small automations, dashboards, to 10 times your output. 2. Own exposure to the rails. On technology, for example, compute, GPUs, AI infrastructure, model adjacent software, data plumbing, cybersecurity. On energy, Long-run demand for reliable, cheap electricity remains a tailwind for renewables plus storage plus grid digitalization. Of course, digital assets. If you play here, know your risk. Focus on real utility, payments, tokenization, decentralized compute, not vibes. Third, design for community as a moat. Your community is harder to clone than your codebase. Raoul's right. Products without a community are fragile. Treat members like owners, or at least like true stakeholders. 4. Lifestyle resilience versus number go up. Translate portfolio gains into real-world resilience. Housing, emergency fund, health, skills, relationships. If the system shapeshifts, pile of lifestyle, greater pile of cash. 5. Reality checks. Demographics are real headwinds. Debt is a drag. Productivity could inflect up if AI diffusion sticks. It's improving lately, but not guaranteed. 6 years isn't a doomsday timer. It's a focus window. The compounding you set in motion now, skills, community, smart exposure to secular rails, will decide how you land in 2030. Don't fight the wave. Surf it. If you learn something new, smash the like button and hit subscribe. Drop the one thing you're going to ship this week using AI. Let's build together, and I will see you next time.